What is a medical grade and when do I need one? This is one of the most commonly asked questions that I get, and here's all the details. And I just recently attended the VDI conference for medical grade plastics, and there's an updated version of the VDI Guideline 2017. I'm going to talk in this video about everything new and about everything you need to know about medical grade plastics. I'm Lucas Pianegonda, and I've helped over 30 medtech companies to choose the right plastic for their application. And let's just right into it. So, what is a medical grade? The medical grade has 4 key components. And this is not according to me, this is according to the VDI guideline. Number 1 is you have the change management. And this is a very key part of it. Then you have quality management, you have supply security, and you, of course, have regulatory support. Let's get into every and all of these 4 properties, because medical grades are about the service package, not about biocompatibility or, God forbid, something like medical approval, because there's no such thing as medical approvals for plastics. It is approvals for devices. Devices get approved with plastics, made from plastic, but not plastic grades are approved for medical use. So if you hear someone say, and this is something I stole from the VDI guideline, is one speaker went up there and said, if you want to discredit yourself in the least amount of time, ask from the material supplier if they have a medical approval for their medical grade or for their grade, because it's not how that works. It's like you approve devices made from plastics and not you don't approve materials. So moving on, change control. So the most important property of a medical grade, in my opinion, is the notification of change. If you change anything about the grade, may that be processing, or may that be where you produce it, or may that also be additive packages, although it's the same CAS number, you need to inform your customer about it. So if you're manufacturing a medical grade, you want to notify your customer about each and every change. Of course, you need to have a little common sense here. So it's not reasonable to have every little super minor change communicated, but the most important changes, such as additive changes, formulation changes, where you produce and with what technology you produce your medical grade, is very important. Then, why do I need this as a medical device manufacturer? I, of course, needed to look at the risk management that I currently have with my device and see if that has any impact. It doesn't mean that if you get a change from your material supplier, that it's always the case that you need to revalidate. Sometimes you do. Depending on your risk class, you do a lot. And sometimes it's just a change that, the mechanical properties and the color might be off a little, but we can accept it. And we do not need to revalidate or sample each and every part. It's about knowing the changes. And I think this is what most people underestimate, because every grade that you get that is industrial, general purpose, or food grade will have changes in them, but you just don't get communicated. And the question is just, do you want to know what's changing? And then you can address it. Then you can make a risk assessment. Then you may or may not have testing required in order to mitigate the risk, or you're just completely in the blind. And sometimes it's okay to use a general purpose or a food grade for something like a housing or for something that has no patient contact. But if you're using a medical grade that is, again, heavy patient contact, like implanted for several days, that is probably not a good idea. Then, quality management. So there's requirements towards the specification in process control, outgoing goods inspection, and quality management systems. Usually they use the ISO 9001 framework, but some suppliers, some compounders also use the 13485 norm, which is made for medical devices, but they sometimes apply it. Very important is that they have a quality management system, that quality is managed, that there are process controls, and that the knowledge of quality management is well incorporated into your resin manufacturer's processes. Then supply security is, I think, the second most important point. After change notification and supply security and change notification, they just go very well together, because like I am notified about the change and I do want this grade as it is right now in order to make my device work. So what they do is you have a notification period, meaning 2 years in advance, usually 2 years, you will get a notification of change and say, hey, we will change this additive or this manufacturing location due to reasons. Good. And then you will have a notification period. So 2 years before the change is really implemented, you will have a notification that we're going to do this in 2 years. And then you have the last order call. So when the 2 years end, you will have the chance to order a 3-year quantity of material, and then you can store that. So you have overall 5 years to do the change. These times may vary, but this ensures a very orderly change, and this ensures that you're able to supply during the change time and you have plenty of time. It's like I've seen many companies sleep on changes in materials. So many of the medical device companies use those 5 years because they're used faster than you think. But it is so important that a medical grade manufacturer gives you this time to change over and supply security. Another point here that I would like to mention, 21-22, when we had the supply chains disruptions because of COVID, I have never heard of a case where a medical grade has not been supplied. So you get priority allocation usually from suppliers when you have a medical grade. Medical grades are more expensive. That is a point that I do not have on the slide here, but it's like insurance. Like if you don't need it, it's expensive. And when a bad day comes, you're very happy you have one. And supply security is the number one reason why you want a medical grade in bad times. It's like change management. You want to have a monitor and make your resin manufacturers help you monitor the changes in material and ensure the regulatory requirements. But the supply security is where the price is really justified. And then regulatory support. Also super important to evaluate. I have mentioned it many times. Also in the 5 most common mistakes on choosing plastics. I think we can link that video somewhere. It is not evaluating regulatory support is one of the mistakes. And it's so important that you have a regulatory support from your manufacturer. That is not only the certifications and statements, it's also extractable leachable studies. It's sterilization and aging data. It's secondary regulatory monitoring, meaning that they will look at the regulatory changes and inform you proactively, have the webinars and all that stuff. And sometimes even formulation disclosure with your biocompatibility lab. So the regulatory support is a very important topic here. And a supplier with a good regulatory support is needed for medical applications. And if you have a medical grade, this should be included in the service package. So summarizing, a medical grade is not about biocompatibility, about technical properties, about purity. It is about the service package around it. It's about the change management, quality management, supply security, and regulatory support. And if you can combine all of this into a service package, such as, I have several examples and no affiliation with those companies. But for example, if you have a Medeco from Biofox, if you have a Purell from Lionel Bazell, if you have a Bormate from Borealis, those are all medical grade packages that have this incorporated in some sorts. They have different, let's say, nuances on how they incorporate this guideline, but the key aspects are there. And why should you choose a medical grade? The point why you should choose a medical grade is you get the service package from the first 25 kilo bag that you buy, because you can negotiate all of this with a quality agreement. It's no issue. You can negotiate that. Like if you take 1,000 tons a year, you go to your supplier and they say, look, you tell me every time you change something in this category, you will ensure the quality management in this way. You will give me a last order call if you change something. You will have a notification period of 2 years. You will have the regulatory support that I want. And you do that. Yeah, but if you only take a ton, 2 tons, 3 tons a year, your supplier might just say, yeah, buy 2 full trucks and then we'll talk. So if you use a food grade, you cannot ensure this over a quality agreement if you have low negotiating power. So you should take a medical grade when you need this, and you cannot ensure it in another way. But if you negotiate the quality agreement and they say, I want this service package, they'll just tell you, yeah, but then it's going to cost more because it's more costly. And this is where medical grade comes in. And some suppliers will even not give you a food grade for your medical application. That's another story. I will cover that in risk assessment and how to cover your ass in a lawsuit. I think that's an upcoming video that I'm going to make. But this is what the medical grade package is about. It is about change management, quality management, supply security, and regulatory support. If you have that in a package from the first 25 kilo bag, that is a real big advantage that you have for a medical application. And it all depends on the risk class. For crutches, you may not need this, but for an implant, this is just essential. This is not enough for an implant, just by the way. It's all about risk management, and where you really need the medical grade is to be decided on your specific case. This is just what a medical grade really means. So it doesn't mean biocompatibility, means the service package behind a material. Good. So if you're a medtech company and you're struggling to choose the right plastic, in this case, do I need a medical grade? Do I need a food grade? Do I need a general purpose grade? You can click the link in the description, and then there's a video that tells you how I can help you. And if you like the video, like, comment, and subscribe. YouTube will show you more of these videos if you do so, because it knows your taste now. And if you want to request a video or ask a question, just leave them down in the comments below, and I will answer them. I read all the comments. And yeah, until the next time, have a good one.